Welcome to Mindshift Power Podcast, the only international podcast focused on teens, connecting young voices and perspectives from around the world. Get ready to explore the issues that matter to today's youth and shape tomorrow's world. I'm your host, Fatima Bey, the Mindshifter. And welcome, everyone. Today we have with us Iuri Melo. He is out of Utah, and he is the co-founder of School Pulse. And I'm going to let him tell you about himself and why he's here today. How are you today, Iuri?
Fatima, I am fabulous, and thank you so much for inviting me. I am ready to rock and roll with you, girl. Let's go.
All right, so tell the audience about yourself. Who are you?
Sure. So I'm first of all, I'm a married man. I'm a father of five seriously incredible kids that I'm just inspired by all the time. I've actually been a licensed clinical social worker for about 20 years. Mostly in private practice. And honestly, the experience that I've gotten as a result of that, just meeting people knee to knee, right? Eyeball to eyeball, like I'm sure you've done, Fatima, is just so incredible. About 7 years ago, I started School Pulse, and I'm sure we'll chat about it a little bit more, or maybe even kind of how I started that. But really what we do, or what we want to be specifically for schools and for adolescents, is we just want to be a fabulous solution that is coherent, that is streamlined, and that provides kids with proactive tools to be successful in their relationships, obviously successful in schools. And often schools are really concerned about suicide prevention and student wellness and things like that. And we just want to provide schools with an easy solution that they can apply and adopt immediately. So just very briefly, that's a little bit about me. I live, like I said, like you mentioned, I live in southern Utah, which is about an hour and 45 minutes away from Las Vegas. It's just this wonderful place. Love to rock climb, love to run, love to spend time with my kids. It's a good time.
So tell us a little bit more about School Pulse. School Pulse. You explained it briefly, but what is School Pulse?
Yeah, so School Pulse is a service that we offer to schools and districts and even statewide. So schools have kind of a mandate, or districts have a mandate throughout the country to provide suicide prevention, to provide mental health supports and resources for students and for parents. And so what we've done is we've taken a lot of time to listen to principals, to listen to school counselors, to listen to superintendents, and find out what it is that they want, what problems are they attempting to solve, what challenges are they facing when they're having to deal with students. And what we found is, and this is not going to be news to you, is that school counselors, that administrators are just overwhelmed.
Yes,
they're overwhelmed,
yes.
not just with the demands, right, that are given to them through the state, but they're also overwhelmed with the demand that students are putting upon them. I mean, we know that 60 to 70% of teachers are dealing with students who are going through mental health concerns, mental health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
We know that our rates of depression, our rates of anxiety, our rates of student suicide, our rates of students who are self-harming are well above the norms, the highest that they've ever been. And this, of course, is translating into schools, right?
Right.
And so here are these principals, right, who's really the primary role is we want to provide some education for these kids. But of course, when we're not well, right, when we're not mentally well, when we're not emotionally well, learning becomes very difficult. And oftentimes our decision-making, is challenged during that time as well. And so our goal is, in a very simple way, is we want to provide tools for these administrators. We want to provide tools for these counselors. In fact, we've created the most robust, the most complete mental health resource for teens in the country. Our program, which we offer in a variety of ways, we provide live text-based support to students. And one of our roles, and I think this is really important to me, Fatima, is I think a lot of times I find that we kind of enter this passive and reactive mode. In a sense, we're almost kind of waiting for crisis to happen, and then we're kind of jumping into intervention, right? Like we're waiting until students are suicidal, and then we provide resources in front of them. And what we wanted to do is really come to students proactively
Right.
and build what in psychology we call our protective factors, right? The things that create confidence, the things that build our ability to learn, instead of just focusing on the risk factors. And so we proactively go to students via email, we proactively go to students via text, and then we provide them with live text-based support in addition to our incredible resources that we provide to schools. I mean, I kind of jokingly say that this is like a Nobel Prize winning service that we're offering. But the reality is we have had those kinds of conversations with students. I mean, who are just actively suicidal, or who may be self-harming, or who may even have homicidal ideation, or who are reporting physical or sexual abuse. And we're just honored, to be honest, we're just honored to be there to provide support and to help to connect those incredible students, number one, to their personal network of parents or guardians, and then, of course, to the professionals at the school. And we've been incredibly successful. We're just so grateful. Yeah.
I love, 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 love what you guys do. And I believe in it because there does need to be a realistic solution for our youth. A lot of them, we're talking about America right now in the US, they're lost, really lost, and they're not really being given. We're so politically correct that we're not actually solving any problems. And that is hurting them tremendously. And a lot of them, they're not going to talk to the principal and the staff there, because a lot of the staff has to be clinically trained robots. So they're less human in their approach. And now, of course, this isn't everywhere, but I'm talking in general terms. And there's a very large disconnect. One of the reasons I started the podcast is because there's a large disconnect between the adults who serve our youth and our youth. And I love that you guys make that connection. So let's take a deeper dive into how you do that. So
I love it.
Explain to us now. You and I have talked about this ahead of time. So
Sure.
you send out text messages. How do you send them out, and what's in them?
I love that. So one of the things that we do, in fact, I'm going to do one a little bit later today, and we do it in a variety of ways. But when we walk into a school, right? I mean, the very first thing that we want to do is we want to deliver like immediate value, right?
Right.
And so one of the easy things that we can immediately do is we literally grab schools usually do this, obviously. Like they provide a roster of their parents, a roster of their students, and we begin our proactive email campaign. And this is the simplest thing that we do. And this is just one thing that we do. And every Monday, we deliver what I call kind of our student success activities of the week, right? Anything ranging from, how to build confidence, how to test better, how to improve our relationships, how to get rid of your stage fright.
Mm-hmm.
These are just questions that students have asked: how to deal with anxiety, how to
Yeah.
deal with stress,
Anxiety
how
is
to
a
deal
big
with
one.
depression. It's huge. And we'll be happy to talk about that a little bit as well. But what we're talking specifically about with our text-based support, and that's just one piece that we offer. It's pretty innovative, but we actually provide schools with these really cool posters with really positive sayings, and then with the QR code. And students literally just walk up to those with their phone. They scan it, and that's all they need to do. They don't have to download an application.
Good.
It's not an
Okay.
app.
That's
They
important.
don't have to they don't have to create an account. They don't have to create a password. They just immediately get a text on their phone. It's kind of wild that says, "Hey, welcome to School Pulse." And from that moment on, that student is going to receive proactive support every Tuesday and Friday. What that means is we proactively text them Tuesday and every Friday, but then we're available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to midnight, 365 through the summer. So this is one of the ways that we can walk into a school and immediately amplify their efforts, multiply their efforts, because in a matter of seconds, we could be chatting with hundreds of their students, and especially after school, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, principals, administrators, counselors, they need to go home too, right? They
Yeah.
have to be
Yeah.
with their own
And like you said,
families.
they're overwhelmed. They can't do everything they want to
They
do.
are. Yeah, they are. And we actually recognize, I think one of the things that I've learned is we've now chatted with hundreds and hundreds of schools and with staff. And I think that they're actually trying really hard. I mean, with maybe some few exceptions of
Yeah.
individuals that may be struggling themselves, but I think they're trying. I think they certainly see the challenge. I think they
Yeah.
see the struggle. They
Hmm.
certainly feel it, right? Because it's happening in their school. It's impacting the culture and atmosphere in their school. But oftentimes they're just overwhelmed. I'll give you an example. For example, school counselors. I think school counselors really want to counsel youth.
Yeah. A
I
lot of them
think
do.
they spend a lot of time dealing with scheduling and things that are also necessary. They're important. I think they get it. They end up dealing with these other things that are less about actually supporting the individual
Yes. Yes.
student.
I agree.
And so I think our role is we want to come in. Number one, we want to give them awesome tools that can assist them in that process, but we also want to multiply their efforts by providing this additional level of support that's just available to kids. And by the way, to parents. We have lots of parents who opt in. Everything is transparent. We want parents to know exactly what's being sent to students. And so we have lots of parents who participate. And by the way, who not only participate to kind of see the incredible content that we're sending to students, but they themselves are chatting with us about their own struggles, whether it's parents that are going through a divorce or they're dealing with their own sadness, their own anxiety, their
Right.
own trauma.
Yeah.
And we just provide that level of support, which is really unheard of. It's fabulous.
What I'm hearing is that you, by using a text message method of reaching students, you're reaching people where they are, which is a principle I
That's
teach
right.
talk about and teach a lot. It's very important. And you're also a liaison between the adults and the youth. And that to me is key in what is absolutely necessary. In our schools, and I'm speaking in general terms, the environments are, like I said,
Sure.
so politically correct. Real, actual conversations that'll give actual results are not allowed to take place. So you guys allow that little leeway where they can just say whatever they want to you. And, and you can reply or help them or however. But give us an example of what some of these text messages look like.
You bet. I mean, I'll give you an example of one just yesterday. We actually, and I think it's important to realize that how important the proactive piece in texting is.
Hmm.
I think that that's really a key part.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that we're not passively waiting for students to come to us. We proactively reach out to them Tuesday and Friday. Tuesday with our brand new student activity, our brand new student videos, which if you'd like, I'd love to provide. These are just free resources that your parents, that your listeners can use. But we provide that every Tuesday. It's fun. It's attractive. It's easy to engage in. And then on Friday, we actually do a variety of things. We deliver other inspirational content, and then we also do 4 questionnaires that kind of go every other week. And we measure students' academic effort. We measure their opinion of how the culture and atmosphere is at their
Oh,
school.
that's important.
We measure their general wellness. Yeah, super cool, right? And then we also measure their level of confidence, and we provide that data. It's an average data. It's not individual to the student, to the
Hmm.
school, which actually it informs them, right? It
Right.
informs their ability to intervene and to see, like, what is the actual pulse of my student body, right? And so we provide that to schools, which educates them and informs their intervention tactics, right, in the future. But the texting, what I was going to jump in specifically about proactive texting is 80% of our engagement with students happens as a response to our text to them. So, for example, our busiest days on our inbox per se, right, is our Tuesdays and Fridays by a lot, because that's when we proactively tap them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, check this out." Like, "Hey, take a look at this. Hey, what do you think about this?" Or, "How are you feeling today?" Or, "How has your week been?" And when students are engaged with, they respond. And that's when we have these magical conversations. So, for example, yesterday we actually had a student that reached out to us uh, and told us about 2 things. They were actually talking about a student that was a friend of theirs. And she says, I'll paraphrase, of course, but I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. And while we were in the midst of this discussion, she reported that she was being hit at home. right? And then throughout that conversation, she also expressed some suicidal ideation.
Mm.
And so this dear student, and I'm telling you, Fatima, this is just like heartwarming stuff. These students just reach out to us and say, hey, like, what should I do? My friend
Yeah.
just said this. Should I call the Division of Child and Family Services? What do I do next? Right. And of course, our goal, right, is we support the students. We just love them, really. And then we do everything in our power to connect that student to those professionals at the school. And that's exactly what we did. She was actually giving us information about a student that was going to a different school. We were able to contact that. I mean, this is just yesterday. We were able to contact the counselor at our school, which then contacted a counselor at the other school and gave them the information about that student that was reporting some physical abuse and some suicidal ideation. Right. And I think that that's the strength of our program. And you're absolutely right, Fatima. It is amazing to realize, but we've been teens. We know how that is too. Walking from that school classroom or hallway and into that counselor's office
Yeah.
is not an easy
It
walk.
is not.
That is not
It
an
is
easy
not.
walk. They don't quite know what to expect. They don't
Yeah.
quite know if that's the right
They also
place.
don't know if they can
And
trust
so
us.
often kids don't. Yeah,
They don't know if they can
I
trust you
think you're
yet.
absolutely right.
And that matters.
And I think that that's the beauty of our service, right? Is this anonymous, right? We reach out. We actually don't know who that student is. And that anonymity, that protection, that safety, I think is why
Yes.
we get this incredible contact
And that
from
is
students.
so awesome. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there have been students that have reported, other than yesterday, suicidal
Sure.
ideations rather, being sexually assaulted at home, being abused in any kind
Mhm.
of way, sexual or physical or whatever. What about school shootings? Has anybody ever reported that? Or
We have.
okay,
We have a lot of schools in a lot of different places throughout the United States. I mean, all the way from California to New York to Florida to Washington to Idaho to, and so there's just a variety. But I'll tell you an example, and this was, I don't know if you recall, it was in December. I actually don't remember the exact date, but it was in Wisconsin. And there was that school shooting, and isn't it sad that those things are
common.
happening so
Yeah,
often?
yeah.
It's just a tragedy. But there was a school shooting in Wisconsin, and on that same day, we had a different school that we serve in Wisconsin, and there was a student there who was willing enough. They had built enough of a rapport and a trusting relationship with us that they expressed some homicidal ideation to us. That they expressed
Wow.
some thoughts like that. And number one, we're just so honored, right? Why does that matter so much? I constantly tell people, like, whatever we talk about, we begin to control. Whatever we don't talk about controls us.
Amen.
And so when kids come to us, and even just the act of expressing it, right, of getting it out of their
Yeah,
heads and
yeah.
saying it or writing it or texting it, that in and of itself is therapeutic. And so when students express that, not only were we able at that point, right, to obviously provide support and resources, but we were able to identify that student and connect them to their principal, who was able to intervene. And so on that day, the very same day, we had one very tragic incident and another incident that no one will ever know about, because we were able to intervene. And of course, I'm not trying to say like that we stopped the school shooting, because I can't say that particularly. All I
I
know
can say you did.
is that yeah.
I think
All I know is that we had a dear
99.9% chance
student.
that you
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. And all I can say, right, is that we had a dear student that was willing enough, that was brave enough to share some of his own mental concerns,
Hmm.
and we were able to intervene. And we've had that all the way to other specific situations where we have schools with lots of gang activity, and we have students who have reported school shootings, gang shootings, or sometimes even in the midst of those things happening,
Wow.
we've had them warn about specific events that were going to happen. And the beauty of it is, all the way from students who have reported, right, I mean, that there was physical or sexual abuse going on even within the school. So, and schools are just grateful, right? They're just doing the best that they can. We know that they're
Underfunded.
overrun in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're just happy to come in what I feel is an incredibly affordable and effective way and just provide some additional support. So
I think that's
yeah,
awesome. And I also want to point out the fact that students will let you know about something as sensitive as I'm being abused at home. Will
yeah,
let you know that, you know what, these guys are beefing, there's about to be a shootout.
yeah,
When
yep,
the
yep,
fact that they feel willing to open up to you and say that, to me that says how effective you actually are, because it is not easy to get teens to respond to anything adults do, really. And if they feel safe, that's something I've learned about teens. If they feel safe, they'll open up. But they have to feel safe first. They have to feel like
yeah,
there's not going to be an attack. There's not going to be, you can't say this. Oh, that's not right. Don't say it that way. There's not going to be any of that crap. There's just going to be, you need help. We can help you. What can we do? And just that simple, basic foundation of just that makes a difference in them being able to feel like, okay, it's safe. They don't know who I am. I can be honest. I can express myself. Because
yeah,
unfortunately, in today's modern school society, expressing yourself in reality is not allowed. So how are we supposed to get our kids to fix anything if they can't even really express themselves because they're going to be shut down one way or the other? And there are
yeah,
exceptions to that, but when I'm speaking in general terms, but for the schools where that's not true, they're the exceptions and not the rule. And I think that's part of the problem. But what I like is that you're offering a solution. And you're not saying, I'm going to replace everything in your school. You are saying, I'm going to come alongside and work with the school. Because like you said, in some schools, it is they are trying the best they can, but they are, limited resources. And one of those resources are humans. Limited resources, funding, uh, employees, limited resources with, you know,
yeah.
actual digital resources, whatever it is. But having a space where kids can come and actually be honest and real, that's a really, really, really big deal. So, text message. What text message did you send out to the teens yesterday?
I love it. Yeah, there. I'll open it up right now. We actually had. So I'll just open up. I hope I didn't lose you. Am I still on your screen? Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I guess we're just recording. That's right. That's right. So here's the message that went out. That's right. Sorry about that. Sorry, I'm just rolling down to it because I. So here's the one that went out on Tuesday, right? So we actually have a video, and this is not just questions that students will ask us specifically about, like following the crowd, but these are actually, things, once again, as we've spoken to schools, as we speak to school counselors, as we speak to principals, who at times have to deal with disciplinary issues as well, right? But we actually sent out a video. It's a following the crowd video. And the question that comes out, there's a little image that just says following the crowd. And then there's a question below it that just says, have you ever gotten in trouble for following the crowd? Right? This is a tough choice for sure, but I think I have some ideas for you. Check out this video and take the quiz. And we just provide a link right there. The kids can open it. They can watch a short, inspiring, fun video that's not cheesy, I promise. And they can take a little quiz and they can just kind of see where they're at. The one above that is on Friday. We send lots of content that I think is kind of funny. We actually have a little picture of a person sleeping in a room with a mosquito, and then there's a little thing that says, "If you think you're too small to make a difference, try spending the night in a closed room with a mosquito." And then just a little quote that says, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." And it's just that simple. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just little messages just like that. We have the previous Tuesday, we had a specific video about how to deal with fighting and conflict better.
Okay.
Before, so it's just, we're constantly proactively, once again, that's kind of the key. We're proactively always delivering content to students that is meant to inspiring, that's meant to elevate their psycho, that's meant to shift their mindset, right? I mean,
Yes.
that's what you
Yes.
do, Fatima, right? We want to plant,
Plant. Yes.
these ideas, right, inside their mind that are benign. And I really want to say this, right, because you're right, Fatima, right? We are walking into state and federal institutions, right? And so our content has to be benign. It has to be friendly. It has to go out to parents. It has to go to schools in a way that schools can look at all that content and go, I can absolutely send this to a parent and it's not going to blow up in my face, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
times administrators are just fearful, right? I don't
Yes.
even know what I
That's
can
what I mean.
share,
Yeah. That's
right?
what I
I
mean.
don't know what I can talk about. I don't know what I can share. And so what we've worked incredibly hard with schools to make sure that our content, right? Number one is growth mindset specific, is positive psychology. It's full of that. And it's full of cognitive strategies, right? That are kind of the gold standard in a sense that will assist these students in a way that is not politically charged, that's not going to offend them. And we have had countless parent board meetings to address these things. And not once, even all the way from the most liberal to the most conservative throughout the country, right? And we have had parents, our resources are available to all, they're transparent to everyone. And we've heard nothing but just um,
This is
extraordinary reviews from them.
this is awesome.
Yeah, it's very important. Yeah,
What are the other methods? I know that there's more methods than just texting.
sure,
What are the other methods what are the other things that School Pulse does?
sure. Yeah. So the email is I always mention that one first because that's just the easiest, right? I mean, we can walk into a school and immediately the school can adopt this approach of just sending one proactive email. We don't want to spam people. One email per week where we deliver that student success activity that matches the one that's happening at the school for the week. So this goes out to every parent so that they can be aware, like, hey, here's what we're focusing on this week. It goes out to every student. And this is just a simple way to make sure that we are reaching every student. Like, so at schools, they usually kind of have a tiered system. They want to make sure that they do things that reach every student. They want to make sure that they provide some additional support for students who may be struggling. And then at the tier 3 level, they want to make sure if there are students who are really struggling, they can provide those supports. And so one of our jobs is to be a whole school tier 1 type solution. That means we want to provide tools that will not burden staff.
Yes.
Once that email campaign is started, they don't have to touch it. So this is like a one touch and then let it go. Plug and play, true plug and play. The text is another one of those, right? Once the student is opted in, unless there's an emergency that we're going to communicate with that school, like we are literally offering that support. The school doesn't have to touch that. Go ahead.
Speaking of texting, I think you mentioned a very important number to me that I think the audience needs to hear. So anytime we're opted into subscribe to this, you get this text,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. We often unsubscribe, right?
Sure.
What is the percentage of unsubscribe from these teenage students that get text messages from you? What is the unsubscribe rate for School Pulse?
I'm glad you asked that because it really is amazing. And it honestly amazes me because I want you to think that in some of these cases, Fatima, we are proactively texting students for years.
Wow.
Like it's wild. Like we have students that will go, and our program specifically targets about 7th grade to 12th grade.
Okay.
So it's kind of middle school, junior high. That's kind of where our content is focused. But we have less than 3% of students opt out of our service, which is just awesome.
What? Less than 3%? I think that's crazy. I think that's absolutely crazy because I can't think of anything else where that's the case. Even like outside of school, just anything.
Yeah. And just think Tuesday and Friday. You're going to get a little text. And of course, right, we try to make the content attractive, funny, engaging. And of course, this doesn't mean that students engage with us on a week-to-week basis. I mean, we have students who will go and just, in a sense, receive our content for months, and then they will talk.
Yep.
And then they'll kind of go on a pause, and then they'll
have to plant seeds
that's right.
and wait for the buds to sprout. And that's what you guys do. You plant seeds. I'm always talking about thought seeds. Everything Fatima Bay, the Mind Shifter, is talking about thought seeds because that's what I do too. But you're planting those seeds in our youth, and then you see the manifestation of the buds starting to sprout up. Months later, a year later, the fact that they don't unsubscribe and they're done with high school and they still taking your messages, to me, that says that it adds value. Now, one key thing before we go, I want to make sure that we point out as well is you help students to connect with their parents? How do you do that?
So we do it in a variety of ways. And that's always our first line of defense. So when you have, number one, I'll tell you this way. So our proactive emailing that goes out to parents, that's one of, we believe in parent development, right? So
Right.
we want to assist parents. So part of our proactive campaign to deliver these student success tools to parents is to do that, is to help to engage them with their own student who may be struggling with their academic grades, who may be struggling in their sports, who may be struggling with their friends, who may be struggling. And we're literally providing parents in a very easy way with tools that they can connect with their kids. So that's one way, right? Is we proactively just deliver this to them so that we're giving them resources that are fun, that aren't geeky or dorky, but they're
Right.
fun and that are packed with actual solutions and tactics, not just kind of metaphorical
General,
or
all
just
purpose,
philosophical.
watered
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
And trust me, I actually, I mean, I love to talk theory. Like I really do. Like I could talk philosophy and abstract things all the time. I just enjoy that, to be honest. But I realized that with parents and students, we have to deliver steps like do this and this and this, try this, because I feel like that's helpful. So that's one way. The other way, of course, is when we're actively engaging with students, right, over text, and students report these things to us. And our goal is always to connect that student first to their family. Like that's where we ought to be connecting them. And the way that happens is we ask the student for their own personal information so that we can connect them to their parent. I will tell you, though, I would say about 85% of our interventions happen through the school. So that means the student is more willing to give us the name of their counselor or the counselor at the school, or the student. We usually ask for the student's identification number so that then we can connect them to the counselor, and then the counselor connects them to the parents. More often than not, that's how our interventions work, is they go through the professionals at the school and then to the parent.
Okay.
But they end there, which is really where they ought to be, right? That's where we want those interventions to go. But
and that's the liaison
you mentioned
piece.
something else. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. And you mentioned specifically what are some of the other things that we offer. And I'll just share one more. One of the things that we do, just because I really love this one, because we're constantly trying to solve for the problem, right? What is the problem, right? And one of the things that we see, in fact, I was having a conversation, I'll be honest here, with one of my own kids, went and spoke to the vice principal specifically about kind of a disciplinary issue. And as I was talking to this principal, he said, Iuri, this is what I do all day. It's one of the vice principals, a good friend of mine. And he said, I spend all day dealing with discipline issues, all the way from tardiness to disrupting the behavior environment, the learning environment, to fighting, to gossiping, to relationship issues, to kids saying discriminatory stuff in the hallways. I mean, you can imagine all of it, right? And he says, I spend all day doing that. And so what we did is we created these activities as part of it with our videos that can be assigned individually. We've identified the 24 topics, the 24 areas that principals say we constantly deal with these things. And we have provided these activities that they can assign individually to the student and the parent. So this is another way that we connect those parents, is whenever, and I call this is called our restorative practice, or restorative justice is kind of a common term that's utilized in schools. So we provide schools with these ready to deliver assignable activities that they can assign. Let's say a student is dealing with tardiness, instead of just suspending them, or maybe they're fighting, or maybe there's substance misuse going on. Instead of just suspending or expelling these students, what we want to offer is these positive alternatives to suspension. Let's not suspend.
Yeah.
Let's not exclude. Instead, let's teach them. Let's educate them. They're not there yet. Let's give them the tools to succeed. And that's another way, is when those principals or vice principals assigned those assignments, the parent is included. So the parent isn't left in the dark, it's a really easy way for them to become part of that solution, which we know will deliver better outcomes in the long haul
Absolutely.
anyways.
So
Yeah.
if there's a school that is interested in adding School Pulse to their system, or if there's a teenager out there that wants to just become a part of School Pulse, how do they find you?
If you go to our website, that's the easiest way. Just go to schoolpulse.org, and that's pulse as in your heart pulse. So schoolpulse.org, and there you can find a way for you to reach out to myself individually. And then also there, we actually have a little demo number. So if you have a student, or you yourself, or if you as a parent want to engage we have a demo number that runs exactly like our text campaign to the students. So it's no different, and you're still receiving live support. You're welcome to go to our website and get your student, your teen, opted into that. In fact, you can join in yourself and see it for yourself. And then if you love it, add your kid to it. I think you will love it. And for whatever reason, if you don't. It's as simple as that. But it's right there for you. I think you'll be impressed with our resources. If you want, Fatima, I will share some of those with you. All of our videos, we'd love to give you all of those so that your listeners can access our mental health resource. That's the other thing that we offer, is that comprehensive library that's just accessible to schools. We created that very briefly because as we've looked now through thousands of schools' websites, we honestly find that schools have nothing. Like, they have no mental health, no student wellness, no student success resources available. And I honestly just couldn't believe that. And so we just created it for them. And that's one of the first things that we give schools the moment we walk in, is we give them an individualized link with their own logo and just our incredible resources that they can put there. And it just immediately increase accessibility to good, positive, evidence-based, vetted content.
And that is awesome. Well, for the audience listening, your schoolpulse.org will be in the show notes or the podcast description. So you can just click on the link there and make sure you explore his site. There's a lot of resources available there. And thank you, Iuri, for coming on. I really do appreciate all that you're doing for our youth, and for you coming on the show.
Fatima, you've been an absolute pleasure. Keep mind shifting. Keep shifting those minds. I love I love your nickname, the Mind Shifter. It feels very mysterious. Mind Shifter. I love it.
Well,
Anyways, I really appreciate you. You bet. It's good to make a friend.
And now for a mind-shifting moment. I want you to think about this. What School Pulse is doing here in the U.S. is desperately needed at every school in the U.S. A realistic way for our youth to get some help that they need. We all know there's not enough therapists out there for what's really needed. And even then, to find the good ones is slim pickings. I absolutely love that School Pulse is doing something realistic to help our youth. The anonymity that they offer is a part of it. What I want you to think about, we know what School Pulse is doing to help our youth. They're being a part of the solution. What are you doing? What are you doing? And if the answer is nothing, okay. What can you do to make a difference for our youth? A difference. You don't have to save the world. Are you making a difference for someone in your neighborhood? For your niece or nephew that you know is hurting? I want you to ask yourself, what am I doing? Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe to Mindshift Power Podcast on any of our worldwide platforms, so you too can be a part of the conversation that's changing young lives everywhere. And always remember, there's power in shifting your thinking.